There is a skill that every single innovator and high performer, from athletes like Steph Curry to productivity experts like Ali Abdaal, have developed far more than the majority of the people on this planet. And this skill is responsible for how much these exceptional people have achieved in their lives. The best part about this skill is it doesn't require you to change your personality and become inauthentic like a lot of other internet gurus try to get you to do. If anything, it develops the most optimally when you find your own way to hone it. So what is this skill? Well, it's called inquisitiveness. And to start to teach you how to fortify it, I want to tell you a story about a company that changed the way we see forever. Literally. In 2010, 4 friends in the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania had a huge problem. They could not afford to get their glasses replaced. One of the friends, after returning from a backpacking trip and losing their eyewear, had to spend their entire first year of grad school squinting at the whiteboard in their lectures. Another one had worn the same tattered eyeglasses they had for years, periodically upgrading the tape in the middle of them so they wouldn't fall apart. Unlike the wealthy students who could easily replace their frames, or the people who simply just accepted the fact that they have to save up a ton of money to buy new ones, these 4 students decided to ask why, and more specifically, why are glasses so expensive? What they found shocked them. It turned out that a single company called Luxottica owned LensCrafters, Pearle Vision, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and the licenses for Chanel and Prada prescription frames and sunglasses. This meant they had monopolized the glasses market, owning 80% of all sales. And as a result, they could keep prices artificially high while reaping huge profits from customers who had no other options. These 4 friends wanted to change the industry forever. They were going to get around traditional eyewear channels, develop their glasses in-house, and engage with customers directly so they could offer better quality glasses at a fraction of the price. And although there was some initial skepticism and pushback at the idea of buying glasses online without trying them on first, they eventually raised millions in funding and were wildly successful. In fact, they were so successful when they first launched that they had to put over 10,000 people on a wait list because they sold out on their website so quickly. That company was named Warby Parker, and their mission of bringing people quality lenses at an affordable price continues to live on till this day. This story, which I first heard about in the book Originals by Adam Grant, is an excellent example of the skill of inquisitiveness because it highlights what this skill is all about: asking the questions no one is willing or able to ask. Starting a sentence off with why is perhaps the greatest way to start getting yourself to break out of your default modes of thinking. If you're in a conversation and you're getting mad at a person's differing opinion, asking why they think this way can help calm you down, become more open-minded, and see the world from a different perspective. If you're engaging in self-inquiry, wondering how you even got so mad at this person for having a different opinion, asking why that happened and seeking the answer can help prevent your animosity in the future. Or in the case of getting more of what you want out of life, asking why things in your reality are currently the way that they are is the first step to improve your reality and change it. Simply put, why is the word of discovery. And if you listen to the words of children, their mouths utter this word at a much higher frequency. But at the cost of sounding redundant, why is this? Why are children better at the skill of inquisitiveness than most adults? If anything, as your intelligence grows, your ability to think creatively should grow with it. Well, it's because our society is designed to trap you into default modes of thinking, and it's much easier for your brain to accept what is rather than question it. Later in this video, I'm going to explain to you how I questioned the default modes of thinking around content creation and grew my channel to the size it is today. And part of that growth can be attributed to the amazing editing tools that I use, like today's sponsor, Motion Array. If you're looking to get into content creation, but you don't want to spend thousands of hours learning graphic design and animation design, Motion Array's library will make you stand out on any social media platform before you have the skills to be a great editor. They have loads of different assets, from stock footage, video templates, After Effects plugins, music, and sound effects. I actually used Motion Array to create the intro for this video with the floating TV. It would have taken me ages to create a 3D animation like that, but thanks to Motion Array, I just downloaded the files, put them into After Effects, and replaced the TV screen with some footage that I got from YouTube. I also used it for that cool title animation at the start, which is something else that would have taken hours to edit. The templates they provide have the same sort of easy to use process. You just import them into your editing software of choice and change the values. If I want to have a cool retro film effect show over this, I can do that in seconds. If I want some sort of fancy text graphic in my own words, I can do that in minutes. It is by far the easiest way to stand out on YouTube or any other social media platform when you have little to no editing experience. And like you're gonna see by the end of this video, if you want to achieve more than the average content creator, you need something that differentiates you from every other creator out there. So if you want to get the best tool for animations, motion graphics, plugins, or templates that I've been using for years now, you can click the first link in the description and you'll get $50 off of Motion Array. As a child, your brain is like a blank canvas, waiting to get written on. And depending on what you're surrounded by the most, what experiences you have, and what answers you receive from those experiences, that canvas is going to be painted in different textures, tones, and colors. Let's take, for instance, the canvas of the average person in the United States. How did their canvas in their brain come to look like that? Growing up, the child starts asking why to their parents. "Mom, why are vegetables shaped this way?" "Because that's how they grow," the mother replies. "Why does broccoli taste so bland?" "Because it's not cooked with a bunch of seasonings," the mother says. "Why do I have to wear these clothes?" "Because it makes you look formal and well-behaved," she says with a grudging tone. On and on, the child asks questions and receives answers about the world based on other people's interpretation about how the world works. Their canvas starts to fill out, and before they can even start to question why their canvas looks that way, having curiosity about the general function of things in society becomes discouraged. If you're past a certain age in your youth, there's this societal taboo around asking too many questions about the state of things. For one, you don't want to look like an idiot, and if you're asking really basic questions about the world and how it works, you run the risk of looking like an unintelligent, uninformed child. I mean, people were literally burned at the stake even just 1,000 years ago for having a differing opinion from the majority of their tribe. But also, if you decide to go against the grain and try to approach this life in a different way from the average person that you're surrounded with, you might miss out on the same opportunities as them. The average, usual way of doing things offers safety and certainty. Two things our brain craves more than anything. If the brain can keep our ego safe in the form of blending into everyone else's canvas, it will do that even if it means that that path is not genuine to you and you lose that spark of curiosity that you once had as a child. Now, some people's canvases end up getting luckier than others. For instance, a child who grew up with wealthy parents and went to a wealthy school will have far more opportunities so long as they just fit in and remain agreeable. But it's much less advantageous and still just as alluring to fit in and remain agreeable if you come from a low-income household and neighborhood. No matter where you come from, if you want to reinvent the way you approach your life, carve out a path separate from everyone else's, and go farther, which to me is the most fulfilling, courageous path you can take, you must start to question the default mode of doing things. Adam Grant, the author of the book I mentioned earlier, Originals, calls this Vuja Day. It's the opposite of deja vu, where instead of seeing something familiar and feeling like you've experienced it before, you see something familiar with a fresh new perspective that allows you to gain new insight. NBA player Steph Curry is a name I mentioned at the start of this video, and his shooting style is one of the best examples of Vuja Day. You see, before 2015, teams went for three-pointers much less often, and less players on the team were capable of being three-point threats. On a fast break into the offensive zone, shooting from the rim was the only goal. But Curry was different. He started pulling off from the dribble and shooting from three while his defender was still running to the rim. He also encouraged the use of deep threes greater than 30 feet away from the basket. And as a result of his ability to do this consistently, most of the teams in the NBA started adopting these practices and spacing out their defenses and offenses to cover more of the floor. Curry's playstyle was and is a massive influence in how the game of basketball is played today, and it's all because he broke the default mode of thinking. Instead of asking himself, how can I become more effective close to the basket, get it to open teammates and rack up more quick points, he decided to look at the game of basketball from the perspective of, how can I develop a style of shooting and play that allows me to get off threes as quickly as possible? If you watch him play, you'll see that his shooting form is very untraditional. And I'm sure there were players in the past who tried their own variations of this quick release, but Curry was really the pioneer that made it stick into the game and influence the rest of the league. The other name I mentioned at the start was a YouTuber that a lot of you might be familiar with, Ali Abdaal. Ali published a book titled Feel Good Productivity not too long ago, and the central idea of his book is also another clear example of Vuja Day. Approaching the answer to the question, how can I become more productive, has remained virtually the same in any internet self-help space since self-help spaces on the internet have formed. You gotta remove distractions, use Pomodoro timers, and build your discipline. But Ali decided to approach that question from an entirely new point of view. Instead of thinking of the idea of productivity as this thing you need to grind out by relying on motivation and building ever more efficient systems, he proposed that the real secret to being more productive is simply feeling good and making your projects feel so enjoyable that the productivity takes care of itself. In a world filled with hustle culture geeks screaming at you to just grind harder, this science-backed approach to joyful work contains insights everyone needs, but no one was really capable of seeing because of how difficult it is to question the general narrative of productivity. I sound like a brand ambassador for his book when I haven't even read it, nor am I sponsored by it, but it is made by Ali, so I'm sure it's good. Look, I could go on and on, giving different examples of people who shook the mainstream approach to life's different categories, but I think you get the point by now. Whatever you're struggling with in your life that you think you will find the answer to in the place where everyone else seeks it, a better, more unconventional answer is probably waiting for you somewhere else. And you'll find it when you're willing to erase and write over your mind's current canvas. So how does one get into the state of being curious and inquisitive to find these answers more consistently? Well, like most skills, it requires consistent practice. I'm going to tell you the methods that I've used, but in the spirit of this video, I encourage you to try to figure out your own way to approach conventional wisdom and try to gain insights from it from a different perspective. As I've been reiterating throughout this video, making an active effort to add the word why to your vocabulary is the easiest way to start conditioning your brain to think about things differently. Start with the most basic of things you interact with on a daily basis and ask yourself why. For example, this morning as I was brushing my teeth, I looked at my toothbrush and asked myself, why are the brushes designed this way? Is this really the best way to do this? In doing so, I could have gone down a rabbit hole of the history of toothbrush design, what the actual brushes are made of, and think of a material that might work better than nylon for scrubbing grime and plaque off your teeth. But I didn't do that because it's not something that I'm all too interested in. This highlights an important point about this skill. While yes, I do think it's important to make more of an effort to question things, be curious, and remain open-minded, I think the skill really has the chance to potentially change your life when you apply it to something you genuinely enjoy. For me, that started with my YouTube videos. I love making videos, but I knew I didn't want to make the same self-improvement videos everyone else makes. What's something that the self-improvement YouTube space has never seen before that could potentially impact people's lives more than the average video? When asking that question, one of the things I implemented was telling more stories that highlighted the vulnerability from my own life. And that made people feel like they could relate to me and separated me from other creators. But I wanted to push the boundaries even further. Using my passion for filmmaking and cinematography, I thought to myself, what if I make a self-improvement short film with a quality this space has rarely, if ever, seen? In other words, I asked myself, how do I do the opposite of what the average self-improvement YouTuber is doing? The result of this question was a half-year production and creation of a short film I'm really proud to now have on this channel, which I was able to make with the help of Artlist's amazing music library. And based on the comments I received, it's probably the video that made the most real-life impact on people. The lesson there is that competing with the average person by trying to do the things most people do, but better, might get you to a good place. But if you want to get where a select few have been, then you must be willing to think and do what most people aren't willing to think and do. You have to reframe the idea that most people tell you is the best way to get what you want out of life, whether that's more money, better relationships, better health, or more peace, and ask the questions no one has considered. And that's another really important aspect of becoming more inquisitive. You have to increase your ability to ask high-quality questions. I found that when most people try to find solutions to their problems, they often ask very surface level questions. Why am I sad all the time? How do I make money? How do I attract a girlfriend? How do I stop overthinking? These questions, while potentially useful for a short period of time, rarely, if ever, address the real cause of your issues. What if, instead of asking, why am I sad all the time, you instead asked, what is my body and brain trying to signal to me about my current environment and daily habits? Which of these habits boost my ability to feel happier, and which take away from that? And how can I reduce my urge to do the things that take away from that? If you did this, you'd have a much more detailed, precise answer to your problem. So you can also try the practice of deepening the initial question you ask by adding more and more layers to the original question, just like I showed here. Another thing you need to make a habit of is openly admitting when you are wrong. Your beliefs about a certain subject, worldview, or answer to a problem is not a one-size-fits-all thing, and you need to be willing to change them in the presence of newer or more convincing information. That requires you to set your ego aside when you're talking to people who are different from you. And I know that's really hard. That's the thing that the ego wants the least of, but that's why the biggest opportunity for your growth lies there. And lastly, allow yourself to remove any expectations or preconceived notions about something that has a specific structure around it. Whatever you're about to approach, whether that's starting an eyeglasses business, a YouTube channel, the game of basketball, or productivity, remove what you know about it and try doing it in a completely different way. Temporarily erase that part of your brain's canvas, tinker with the elements of the activity, and ask questions that open up different ways of viewing it. You might not always find the best or most efficient way of doing it through that approach, but you'll certainly gain ideas about that specific thing that almost no one had access to understanding until you came in and became the person who was willing to exercise curiosity around the status quo. In those periods of inquisitiveness and experimentation, you'll find the way of life and creation that was meant for you to discover, and you only. I love exchanging ideas with you guys, and I always experience a lot of growth when I see things from a different perspective thanks to someone who lives a different type of life from me. And I wanted to create a community where we could do that. That's why I made a free self-improvement community. If you want to join that, click the link in the description below. Recently, I talked about this idea of escaping from the self-help guru trap of trying to find all your answers from things outside of you. Check out that video right here. I think you'll like it a lot if you like this one. I'm heading out. Love you guys. Peace.